Welcome back to another Talkin Design with Matt and Katie. I'm Matt, and I'm joined by Katie today.
Hey Matt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Katie? I'm a
Good,
little
good.
tired today,
Oh,
but I'm getting
well,
through that.
let's wake up. Let's introduce our
All right.
guest and start waking up with some design coffee here. So, really excited. Today we're talking to Michael Vromans from DPDK. He's the Chief Creative Officer of DPDK Digital Agency in the Netherlands, right, Michael?
Yes, headquartered
Yes.
there. We're also in New York and San Fran, but yeah, I'm in Rotterdam. Yeah,
And global design teams everywhere. Well, welcome to the show, Michael. Thanks for joining us. Super excited.
thanks, guys.
You are definitely probably the highest ranking uh, guest we've had so far, and as
Ooh,
far as industry experience. So no pressure today. No, I'm just kidding. So really excited. A lot of
getting
good
sweaty
design
here.
advice today. Yeah. So Michael, just can you tell us and our listeners a bit about yourself and about DPDK and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. First of all, thanks and good morning,
Yeah.
everybody. At least if you're listening to this in the morning. All right, I'll try to get my coffee voice in. I'm Michael. I lead DPDK from a creative perspective. I've been with DPDK for over a decade, 11 and a half years
Nice.
and going on. So we're based in Rotterdam headquarters, but as I said, also New York and San Francisco. And we have indeed a team all across the world. Actually, I think pandemic kind of elevated that, kind of some of the positive sides of the pandemic there that we've seen. And DPDK does, as you said, we're a digital agency, and we do work across brands, products, and content. We focus on delivering an exceptional customer experience across the three, basically. So we started out as this kind of web production agency around 20 years ago, way before I joined. And we started seeing the fact that you have to look at brand if you're also designing a website, and that you can have a great website, but if the content's not engaging, kind of everything falls short. And if you have one product in your ecosystem as a brand, and then clients have to go to the next one, and the experience is different, they'll just hop off of your experience. I mean, we call that island hopping. There are, one of our analogies is there are no islands anymore. Every island should be connected. Otherwise, you can expect people to, go into a different direction or fall off the boat, basically. So,
Sure,
yeah.
That's awesome. And how did you get to DPDK over a decade ago? What was kind of your journey there?
I think if I go back to kind of into the Wayback Machine, I grew up in a quite an ugly city, actually, that was kind of forced out of the Dutch soil in about 10 years time. So it had a lot of concrete and kind of ugly buildings, which was I think instilled my first hunger for more beautiful things, more pretty things, at the same time kind of being relevant. So I've always been around this, form follows function, or vice versa, discussion where you actually cannot have, either one or either the other. Kind of just pretty things is, we can consider art. I can definitely enjoy that, but it's not, you cannot use that usually as a product. And the same thing, goes vice versa. Something just, if it's only working and that's it, but there's so many things that could have been, better engineered or better designed around it. I find that very frustrating myself. So I think that puts you in a good spot for kind of more, carving out a new vision and helping a team to get there and defining, what's good about this, where should we, finding the weak spots and then kind of polishing the dents out of the weak spots, basically. So always this urge for making things, that's what we call exceptional, actually. So the marriage between something that works really well for a user, and it also, it has this wow effect, and it's just bespoke for, this company. There's nothing like it. We only do kind of unique things for high-end companies that really want to invest in that kind of user journey. So anyway, so that brought me quite far forward. I had my own little kind of one-person agency, literally in a basement already, kind of at the end of the somewhere late 90s. I'm truly very, very old.
No.
And then moved on to some of the country's premier ad agencies. But was a bit frustrated with kind of the whole ad world, the kind of just sending only aspect of that. I mean, it's great being creative. I think everybody, here listening in can definitely relate to that. It's really great seeing something that you put so much effort and thought in, like coming to life and seeing it somewhere. But you don't know how much people appreciate it. That's always been the beauty of digital, right? The measurability and the effect and kind of, the two-way street of action interaction. That's always attracted me. So I always did these kind of digital projects within the different agencies I was in, and enjoyed those more than kind of television or radio or whatever. And then decided to really kind of want to move back again to that love for digital, and then teamed up with DPDK and been in this magnificent roller coaster ever since, basically.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you guys work on such cool things. You have such cool clients. Are you more product focused now than web design? As a studio or agency? Or?
No, I think we came from kind of more web experiences, campaigns, and little games, really in the heydays of the first days of DPDK, and then kind of matured into, okay, this is fine that we're doing this campaign for you, but then what is the follow up, right? Where are we bringing people? Where are you keeping
bigger
people?
Picture?
What about exactly? And then from there we evolved into, okay, but what is your kind of campaigns went into content, right? Continuous content creation. There's hardly any, nothing goes viral anymore. Everything is, continuous content and very authentic, keeping the right people engaged. And we really expanded more into branding, because we kept seeing like, well, if your brand's not powerful enough or relevant enough or authentic enough, I know these are container words, but if it cannot find you a unique spot in the market and for you something to truly be able to bring out to your target groups and it's true, and they can clearly see that that's true and they believe in you, kind of, then everything else will fall short. So for me, it feels like we were creeping more and more and more to the source. And now it's really from that source, we see an abundance of things coming, really good things, because if you have a vision on the brand, there's also a better vision on everything that's going on in this whole brand ecosystem, basically.
Yeah. I feel like we could have a whole conversation on like brand loyalty and really having, a strong, I know, I can nerd out on that all day.
Goes back to the joy and the beauty of things too, when you talk about certain brands, and it really stands out. The brands that just focus on that function versus the ones that focus on the entire experience.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's also where you see the power of, I mean, it's not just visual design, but it's brand design also, in the sense of who do we think we are in terms of copy, right? What are we really promising, and are we living that promise? So a bigger part has become brand strategy and more copy related to what we deliver. And that's really, it's helping companies align with where they, want to be or where they need to be in 1, 2, 3 years. And bringing them closer in a more relatable language as well.
Yeah, definitely. Matt, I think you're frozen drinking your coffee, but I know you're waking up, so we'll let you drink your coffee there. Oh, he's back.
Apparently my webcam is also waking up.
There we go. Exactly.
But follow on to that.
Yeah.
I'll go quick. So Michael, you said you kind of slowly got to that source or the base of kind of the problem. You find in your initial discussions with a lot of customers and clients that they're over here on, this is the problem we're trying to solve, and then you're kind of like, oh no, this is it.
Exactly.
And what does that journey look like to get to that with a customer?
Well, I think so. I'll start with the analogy here, which I think is very relatable. Kind of, you're self-diagnosed when you go to your GP, right? When you go to the doctor, kind of like, oh, I think I have whatever, right? I have a toothache, or I think this is wrong. The first thing your doctor will, well, maybe not the first thing. Maybe they'll say, oh, that's too bad for you. But then they'll say like, they'll go into their assessment of what's truly wrong, right? Okay, take off your shirt, lie down, breathe, do this, do that, and I will tell you what is actually wrong. I think that's most representative of how we or what happens when we do what we do. So we have this intake process with assessments, of course, because indeed a lot of times, clients come in and they ask, okay, can you design and build me that great website, because we definitely need it. And we will, a lot of times we'll disagree, because you take one look at it and you go like, oh my God, okay, yes, definitely, let's do that. But before we do that, right, let's also take a look at your brand, at your content, and maybe also in your kind of what else do you have, because you have a website, but you also seem to have a portal there or an app or whatever. Because if we would just be bad, advisors if we say, okay, yeah, let's just put our focus only on your website and we deliver that, and then just go like, okay, bye bye.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on your doctor,
yeah.
doctor analogy there, or the medical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here's a Band-Aid, but actually, your leg was broken, so but it seems to be fine. It seems to be fine right now. So we have it means we have quite an extensive kind of intake procedure. Where we take a look at all these different perspectives, and we kind of try to broaden the perspective of the customer as well. And then in the end, we still might decide and say, okay, yeah, thanks for all that information, but we still just want to go for the website. Okay, then let's just deal with that. But at least we've shown ourselves, I think, in the best possible way. We've set ourselves up to be able to create exceptional work for them, and build trust, because there's a thing called rigorous candor, which is where we communicate respectfully with one another, but we are really sincere and really forthright in telling you, like, okay, listen, this is really actually broken, right? But of course, there will be finite timelines and budgets and all these things. Sure. But usually companies are really open to it, even up to CEOs that I find myself having very, even funny conversations in, that maybe even a CEO at the end of the conversation, I had this once that he said, so there might be one thing that we then need to kind of even put on the table or up for discussion. And we already were in a session for almost 2 hours. I said, yeah, I know what you mean. And kind of I had a team member going like, what are we talking about? We were like, company name. We both said it at the same time, the company name.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, no. But yeah, but it really, particularly if you take, the C-suite, the decision makers into that journey, they're really actually way more open to those insights and those potential directions than you might think up front. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have you back on, and we can talk about building brands for like metaverse, so we can go into that next realm.
Good.
But I want to get to this cool scaling design guide that you and your team put out for the world to see. You have a physical copy. Can you show the camera?
Yes.
Yeah.
So right here.
Scaling design.
What's
that about?
So it's about something that we've seen emerge, actually, just also from our own experience. Mm-hmm. Scaling design is literally, it's about how to scale your design for a brand you work with or work at, right? So what we've been seeing is that a lot of brands have already digitally matured, or they're rapidly digitally maturing, right? And that makes all the sense in the world, because we've been focusing on the web for over 20 years, and it's actually pretty late, right? It's really dire time that a lot of companies, they really know what they're doing. And you see a lot of brands building in-house teams, or they already have, and they're continuously, the companies that we work with, they typically have multiple products, multiple platforms, multiple channels. They have communications over lots of different internal teams, stakeholders working with design or design assets, communication assets, and they're all doing their own thing, and they're trying to. Sometimes we see teams, particularly with some global clients, you'll have a local team trying to fly under the radar, and then working with a local agency, kind of doing the right design in terms of brand consistency. But of course, we are all designers, so we all want our own little direct take on that, and a little flair to bring in. But actually, these companies, they are more better served by serving out consistent design throughout their different user journeys to their different target audiences. Because sometimes you have companies and they have clients that touch on 7 or 8 different digital products in their kind of in their tenancy with this single company. And if every single product looks and acts different, it's going to be tremendously confusing from a customer perspective, and from a company perspective, it's going to be tremendously expensive. Right? Because if every design system has to be, invented and built from scratch, that's going to be very expensive, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes, right? You're going to, or not, at least not utilize all of the best practices in maybe the product that was before you or the product that's coming after you. So we saw this need emerge, and this came from, in the beginning, from a design system, right? And those are super old. So everybody's been turning design systems into digital, right? Where we can diversify between brand design systems and product design systems for your websites. And then kind of scaling that is, how do we manage the connections between brand design system and multiple product design systems, and opening them up for users on different levels and different ownerships, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like, should those brand and product systems be universal? Should they all be one giant system? Like, what is your take on kind of, I don't know, separating those things out or not separating?
That's a good question, because obviously one of the big typical fears, at least I have this, and I think a lot of designers in our team will have it, and probably this is very relatable to any designer, is, okay, but if there is some big design system in play, that'll be like, it'll be creatively restrictive, right? It'll tell me I can only design this, I cannot design what I actually need, right? So that is the opposite of what should happen. What actually should happen is that you have a big set of resources, again, maybe analogy, Lego blocks that have already been tried and proven, and there's this abundance of Lego blocks in your library, and you can just compile and make sure that you're doing that quickly to get to the thing that you're trying to design, trying to build, then test and make changes and put new blocks in. And if there's blocks missing, design new blocks, but save them back into the library. All right, so it shouldn't be one kind of big rigid system. However, you could perceive it. I always use the family tree analogy. You do need to be able to scale design. You do need to connect all these different design systems and different disciplines to each other to make smart moves and to accelerate the speed of your design while staying consistent, because I think that's one of the big benefits. We already see that with 50 to 60 people companies, that it's difficult for them to, you'll have a team designing the website and the newsletter, but you'll have another team designing their something else, physical materials or something, and those two designs will be different. But if you have a central place where that is managed, you can just pull your components in and they're linked to one another. It's going to be easier for you to design what you're looking for, and then if you need to add something, you can just do that.
Yeah. Should we bring up that visual of the tree that you're talking about here?
This is from the design guide. So it's very simplified, but I think it does explain it very good in that sense, right? So if you stop thinking about, okay, design is a couple of design files that are sitting on on the server in a folder somewhere, and you need to know how to use it. You need to add this design infrastructure basically to it. This is your roadmap of how are things connected. It's like your subway map, right? And at the top, if you would envision there's the main brand, right? And that has a brand design system, and it will have files, and it will have its own guides and rules and whatnot. You should be able to access that from that point. There's also a team or a person that is allowed to change that, and not everybody is. But everybody should be able to, take from it whatever is released from it, basically, just like snippets of code from a tech team. Then you would have this central point. So maybe there's a design team in the middle there with the diamond shape there, managing all the traffic and managing requests. That's possible. Yeah, that one. That's a hub that we usually see, which is a design center of excellence team, and then they spread out into different. These could be. We've had different versions of these for different clients. Sometimes these are divided by target audiences. Sometimes they're divided by different kind of channels, if you will. So you'll have your digital channel, physical, video, books, sometimes everything that has very specific design systems you want to filter out in different branches, and then have your different versions of it. So we've done this for a global company, and there's these different audiences, and every audience might have up to 20 or 30 different digital platforms. Because they're designed for the same audience. So let's just take let's say that's the yellow dot. That's one audience, and within that target audience, they'll use, both these products. So they need to be similar in design and experience. However, of course, they have their own goals, and they need to have their own, functionalities, but they're powered from one central product design system, right? You'll have your separate production files, but they're actually just kind of nested libraries, one into another. If you have the bottom kind of files there, let's say the green dots are the real bottom elements, they will have multiple libraries connected to them, like Matryoshka dolls. That's the analogy we have there. So if you have the bottom file, that should be able to be influenced by 1, 2, 3 levels up. Yeah, we literally kind of, if the smallest Matryoshka doll is one instance, one country version of a certain platform that you're having, right? It'll be influenced by, okay, this is the product design system for all these countries, and that is influenced by kind of, this is the design system for any digital product, which will have more basic components, and that is linked and influenced by the brand design system, which is then the start version. So and we've already done that a couple of times. So you change something in a master brand design system, and down to like country X, design will change instantly, because we've linked different libraries to one another, and your production file just changes in 15 country versions straight away.
Yeah.
So it's really about kind of zooming out and connecting the dots, basically.
And those dots are essentially the islands you were talking about before.
Yes. Yeah. Well spotted.
We no longer have islands because we have a centralized system. That's great.
Yeah. So that's a new visual for the. We'll have to add that. That's a good one.
I want to see more palm trees in the next version.
Yes. I do. I actually question though, who did the illustrations? It's really lovely.
Oh, thanks. That's our design team. It's not a single person. We have, awesome. As we are design system thinkers, we have our own illustration design system. It's actually, so that's part of our design infrastructure, and that's some of these designs are all of them are the end designs are custom, but all the elements, they come from a library. So we have a vast library of all these little characters and homes and devices and whatnot. So if a designer is really in a hurry, they can just compile a design and add the finishing touch. And every month we have a review and we add some new elements. And we keep creating them. So thanks.
Just another question for you. Is there an example or a brand today that is doing this well that you can think of, that is doing, like, really has consistent look and feel across their TV commercials, their website, their emails, their...
No, well, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
because there's I couldn't name one because I'm not sure.
Yeah,
right? Even kind of we're collaborating and exploring this with a global client that has all of that. Right, they are in almost every country. They're on TV, and down to kind of B2B, your kind of all the e-commerce and stuff, and even internal products. So because we've had that insight into this whole ecosystem, kind of, there's so many things, and even for a company that I had always perceived as this is one of the best companies in the world, being consistent in branding and colors and messaging, etc. But then if you really look at everything that they have in their ecosystem, there's so many differences. I think you can assume that a lot of the companies that we can, think of, like the Coca-Colas and the IKEAs and, Heinekens of the world, that they have this all in order, but I bet you bottom dollar that they're having, difficulties with this. Yeah. Every CMO or CTO that we have conversations with has the same issues over and over again, being like, my budgets are being spread out over more and more products at the same time. Plus, I need to go to market so fast that I don't have time to, invent the wheel every time. And that's just going over and over again. So I think this is still definitely needed. Even with clients that we work with that have in-house teams, they really need still to make that kind of, maybe it's a final step, but to have this all into place to empower their design teams.
Yeah. Nice. Just gonna pause. Matt, you got anything?
No, yeah. So I know you cover this in the guide here, the scaling design guide, and you talked about it briefly there, where when we have just one managed design system that's kind of dictating how things should be done, there's not as much room for that flair, and that got me thinking about that whole question about creativity and design systems and how do they play well together. Is this structure supposed to like allow flexibility for individual teams to have some creativity in their area? Or how does creativity play into this system?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Matt. So I think we can all recognize that there are different versions of creativity, right? There's the creativity of, we have a blank canvas, right? We can start doing anything and everything, right? Because we are, the client has enabled us to completely redesign the brand or completely rethink something, right? So those are really exciting times because you can dream up everything, etc. And then you progress along, this arc of, it'll be less maybe kind of the bigger steps, but it'll be in a, you have to see creativity in a different light. Kind of, you'll have one go of reinventing the whole user journey of this product for a target group. And then once it's live, you'll start iterating on it, right? You won't bring a new website every year for the same company, right? But you'll have to keep innovating on it to make it better. So that's where a lot of in-house teams are struggling with. And that creativity is just a different kind of creativity. It's less that, big brush with the broad strokes. It's kind of more detailed, and we focus on something and we say, okay, so this wasn't working correctly. How can we come up with a new feature and improve something that will just, be better? Products are are starting to get a longer lifespan. So you'll have to also facilitate for that. So again, I think there's a kind of this arc of creativity, and we might perceive it to go down, but it's more of kind of, it's a different, it's like a Rubik's Cube. It's a different form of creativity. You have to be creative inside the box. It's always like the outside the box is such a dull cliche. You have to be able to be creative inside the box. That's true creativity. If you have all of these constraints, right? No, you can't change the brand colors. You can't change the typography all of a sudden. You will have to work with these constraints, but still it has to be an elegant and relevant solution. And that's also real creativity.
That was so well said. Like, definitely gonna write that quote down.
Yeah, and I think
a great analogy
for every designer, right? I think some designers are really, are not very comfortable with this blank canvas. A lot of us are, because it's just,
I need constraints.
It's exhilarating. Yeah, but
I need to work within it. I think, there's a debate there about how creative can you be within constraints, and I think it forces you almost to be a bit more creative when you've got like limitations to work with. So this isn't art school. You don't have like free budget, so
exactly.
That's a great question, Matt. I think let's go into, you have a section in here about Design Center of Excellence, which we've touched on a few times. I keep hearing more and more about this within companies. Like, I think I was talking to a banking client recently that they're building one. So you're like, okay, wow, everyone's really, like you said, this digital transformation, the shift, this design transformation almost too. So can you talk about a little bit the Design Center of Excellence, and maybe for anyone looking to start one, or should they start one, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I'll first talk about how we view Design Centers of Excellence.
Oh, good.
Right. So we've come from this. Let's go back to kind of companies have matured digitally, and within that was a process of design becoming more important within a company, right? I mean, designers used to be at the end of any process, go like, okay, and then a designer makes it nice, right? But we've, luckily for all of us, we've become more important. There's connections to the C-suite, real decision makers, because there's become, what drifted up was this idea of, wait, customer experience actually might be more important than pricing or placement or whatever,
yeah,
right?
you need us.
Yeah, that's kind of the customer experience your brand can provide. That's become way more important than only their pricing or only in what store they are available. So there's this kind of improved or increased importance for design teams. Then there's this, if you combine it with, things have become so complex, you're going to need to manage not just how do we produce the design, but how do we manage design operations, basically. So design ops is also a big part of this. This all rolls into kind of what we call a design center of excellence, where a central design team has a thorough understanding of and expertise in this customer experience, this whole ecosystem of a brand. And they are not just only producing the design, but they're also upholding this design infrastructure, right? The family tree, all the design systems. They are increasing its influence and enabling product teams and product managers with requests to facilitate quicker design and more consistent design, so that they can also focus more on the creativity of the solution rather than always, making the design itself. And then there's this, what really makes it excellent is if you then, have this cadence around, releases of design systems, but also sharing best practices, bringing that to the company, proving ROI, return on investment, right? Because that's any decision maker is going to ask you that. And that's really that's one of the pivotal points still to fall, pivotal dominoes kind of. And that's going to come really soon, where a lot of decision makers will understand that if you're large enough, that you're going to have a design center of excellence or some form of it internally to be able to kind of survive the next decade
and manage all of that, right?
And manage all of that,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've worked with a number of different size teams. You were talking about global brands spread out across the world. This structure obviously takes some costs and takes some resources to build. At what point does it make sense to actually start investing in this versus, like, if you're 10 designers, does it make sense to have this, or how does this look in a smaller organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is also kind of scalable. Design is scalable by itself, right? As kind of even for smaller companies, they usually, the smaller companies have big dreams and big ambitions, right? So if it's a small investment if you start now while you're small, right? Thinking from a smaller company, and then make sure that you keep, if you keep the dots connected while you grow, it's not so big of a pain, right? Currently, the large enterprises are feeling the pain because things are disconnected, and then they have to take a relatively large chunk of investment, so pain again, to kind of rework everything that wasn't connected. But if you start small, it's going to be, not so significant investment. If you line up your design team so that they think and work like this from the start, it's actually not going to be such a nuisance at all. I mean, we started out, of course, you always need to experiment on yourself. It's just like doodling, okay, what do we need connected? We know we had kind of internal publications and, like the guides and the illustration design system. We had our digital product design system for the website and all. A lot of things were not connected, even. And I think this also, we have a saying in the Netherlands here, it always leaks in the plumber's house, right? I think every design company has that. Go like, okay, where's our logo, right? I think we say that more often than we want to admit, basically. So once you start doing this early, it's just, it's going to be easier. You'll have a new team member, and once that person asks a question, just give them one infrastructure that is connected to your different XD libraries or production files, and hey presto, a lot of that is solved.
Yeah, definitely. I know we're working here at Adobe on making that a bit easier of a process for everyone to find that logo.
Collaborating with that team on
I've never Googled my company's logo and used it in a deck. No,
no,
not at Adobe. Previously, I would I would just say, I'm just going to Google that quick. Terrible advice. Don't listen to me, anyone. I did, Matt, if we could share the link to download the C-suite guide for scaling design, and I'll throw it in the chat too, in Behance, in our Behance chat there. But top of screen, it's dpdk.com/whitepaper/scaling-design. So everyone can go and download that for free.
And I'd love to hear, if you've downloaded, if you're listening and you've downloaded it, and if you think it's good, let me hear. If you think it's crap, also, let me hear about it. Particularly that, because then we might be able to learn something there. So
Chapter 5, rethinking design. No, but no, it's such a great read, and you have some big names in here. Definitely would encourage everyone to go check it out. The graphics are amazing. Great reading material. I love there's like a Skype logo evolution going on in there too. It's really
which we didn't do. It's right, but it's because of the example.
It's an example.
Kind of, it's not. We're not pretending that we did that.
We didn't. Yeah. No. And then I think we always like to end the show a little bit about, advice you would have for those entering the design industry, because we got a lot of new people, new faces out there looking to make their step in there. So just in general, I think, what is some good advice? Or, I mean, I would even ask you to, like, what industry or what area of design would be a good one to maybe delve into if you're just getting started?
Ooh, yeah, it's a good one. Well, first of all, I'd say welcome in this magnificent industry. It's a great time to be joining. So strap down and hold on, basically. Right, we're going pretty fast. It is a time where you see kind of, if you go on Behance, I think we're streaming this is there, right? And there is just so much beautiful stuff on there, and it's become so much kind of easier. I say this with the greatest respect for everyone's design. It's become so much easier to deliver terrific looking UI. I mean, truly, right? All the prototyping and kind of design tools, everything has
came a long way.
Kind of progressing with light speed. Yeah, exactly. It's very different than, from my first Photoshop 4.0 experience. So that brings a lot of opportunity. At the same time, like, it's clear that a lot of people can deliver, terrific looking design. Yeah. So that's just about the hands right there, right? And you can relatively easily learn that. It's more difficult to learn kind of the mental skill, to be a mental good designer. So in terms of, I wouldn't be able, I think, to point out kind of this is the type of industry you kind of need to be in. I would say, Web3 is very interesting, but from a 3D perspective, that's going to, absolutely know your 3D stuff, but you don't have to. What I would recommend everyone, if you're just starting out, is to answer one simple word with a question mark, one question every single day in your design career, and that's the word why, right? So if you're online probably now, kind of open another tab and Google start with why, click on videos and start the first video there. That's a video from Simon Sinek, start with why, right? And it's really the single relevant question for your design choices. Like, why am I designing, how I'm designing, why am I showcasing this? It's your preferred versions to choose. Am I showing my client this version or the other? It's asking your client why you're telling me my design sucks, right? What is wrong with it? Tell me why so I can fix it. And it's also, the question you have to ask yourself when you're making a career move, like, why do I want to be this type of designer? Or why do I choose not to be one single type of designer, which was in my case, right? You can also choose not to choose, but that's sometimes a more difficult one. As long as it answers the why question, I think that's definitely the most valuable one. So become a mental designer.
You mentioned something about Post-its with that question, right?
Yes. So I obviously, we have a lot of talent that we train, that we bring into the company, and that we try to boost their career, whether here or after here somewhere else. And I usually put one Post-it, one sticky note on their laptops, and that has letters WHY on it, kind of, and I tell them to keep it on their laptop for the duration of their internship. so to imprint it like every single day. So yeah, if you're, a practical tip there, indeed, like take out a Post-it, write Y on it, put it on your laptop or your screen, whatever, look at it every day.
Yeah.
This is also just life. You can also do it on your bathroom mirror.
I know.
Like, why am I here?
Yeah, I feel like, this could be Neil deGrasse Tyson saying this too. Just like, why? Yeah. That's awesome, Michael.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's simple. Again, it's this is from Simon Sinek. I'm not a guru, but it once inspired me, and it helped me inspire a lot of people.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, great. Anything, Matt?
I was going to say, based on the scaling design infrastructure and case study here, as a new designer coming into the industry, as more teams kind of implement a center of excellence and build out a design infrastructure, what are things to pay attention to or to try and learn as a new designer? How do I work best in this new structure of design?
Yeah. So asking a lot of whys. Just kidding. I think it's really important. The kind of muscle you'll have to start training is your zoom muscle. Right? Zoom in and zoom out. Right. I think I see a lot of younger designers going down rabbit holes. Right. That also relates to the question why. Kind of, are you designing the right thing before you start designing things right? Right. Kind of, maybe first zoom out and determine which rabbit hole to dive into before you're, we get enthusiastic by the power of design and by the fact that we're designing something nice, and we sometimes kind of chase down the wrong hole. So it's really important in this, particularly if you're not working in a very small company, to start flexing that muscle, like, zoom in, zoom out, maybe at the end of, every month, every week, or maybe even every day, kind of, okay, what is the relationship here between our brand and our website and maybe our documented materials, right? And just, take a piece of paper and literally like zoom out over your company and see what's there. And then kind of go in again and see if like, okay, then is this consistent, right? Which doesn't mean it needs to be the same. I mean, you need different design patterns for print than for digital, right? But they are influenced by the same, brand design, and they should feel consistent yet not be the same.
Solid advice.
Okay, that's great advice. Yeah.
Flex that muscle. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up here. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. We know you're super busy, you guys over at DPDK, so really appreciate your time. And thanks for putting out, you and your team for putting out this white paper for free too. So everyone go download it. It's a great resource. I think take advantage of things like this. So just thank you so much for being with us today. I've enjoyed our conversation so much. I can't wait for everyone to tell us what you think in the chat while you're watching this, and let's have Michael back sometime. Let's keep chatting.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me. It was tremendous. Had fun. Once again, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.